The C word, conflict. So many people think of it as this dirty word, but conflict is the only way you get change and innovation in organizations. But when you're navigating conflict, you have to know how to give feedback effectively. And as my guests would say, firmly. You're going to meet the author today of Firm Feedback, Jeff Hancher, who is going to dive in with me on so many topics related to leadership, fears, honesty, vulnerability, but also how these things all intersect with technology. I'm so excited to bring this conversation to all of you. So without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome back, everyone. Another episode of Humanized Automation is here. And the conversation that we're going to have today may be one that makes some of you a little bit uncomfortable. And that's because my guest, Jeff Hancher, is an expert in helping people deliver feedback in a way that actually gets results. The author of the book, Firm Feedback, we're going to hear a lot about that. But what's really interesting is in this, age that we're in with people using generative AI to craft messages and emails, there's a massive human element that is lacking of that in context. And if you're using that to have those difficult conversations because you're shying away from them, you could actually be hurting the morale of your team more than it is helping. So I'm so excited to have Jeff here today to talk about that and more. So Jeff, welcome to the show.
Hey, it is so good to be with you and your audience. I love the work that you're doing. I love the subject of where AI and leadership intersect. I'm telling leaders almost on a daily basis, let's let AI manage the data and let's let leaders manage the dignity. And I think we can do both.
Data and dignity. That's a nice dichotomy. We'll just keep throwing out some D words here.
There you go.
It's great. Well, so much we have to talk about here today, Jeff, but what I really like to do at the beginning is just rewind a little bit because I find it so important to know the lens through which, you analyze the world, you see the world. So what lens do you bring to this conversation around firm feedback and really helping leaders better understand how to get not only more out of their teams, but also how to do it in a way that's actually memorable in a positive aspect?
Yeah, thanks for the question. And I would tell you that this perhaps is the subject I'm most passionate about. I'm passionate about leadership in general, but this specific subject of feedback, specifically firm feedback, which is the tough conversations, I'm even more passionate about. Not to go into the whole background, but I grew up in childhood poverty, very little direction, parents that were very sick. On top of that, making bad decisions. I didn't really know where to go in life. Along that journey, I ran into some amazing leaders once I went into my profession after transitioning from the military. With no direction, but a young guy that just wanted to work hard, I ran into some amazing leaders that gave me a lot of tough feedback, but not just tough feedback. They gave me great deposits, built relational value, and gave tough feedback. What I know after asking thousands of people is if you had your Mount Rushmore of leadership, these are the 3 to 4 people that have transformed your life. Were they tough on you? And the answer is always yes. And then I follow that up with, did they genuinely care? And the answer is always yes. So we know this is possible, but leaders are in such a fragile world right now with quiet quitting, the great resignation coming through a pandemic, economic distress, social distress, political distress. You have all of this going on, and a lot of leaders just simply aren't trained to navigate this fragile world that they're leading in.
And it's really interesting because I love this analogy. Like, think of the best leaders and were they all hard on you? Of course they were, right? Because nobody gets improvement or change without conflict. And people see conflict as this dirty, bad word. And conflict is the greatest gift that we have because nothing ever advances without it.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And what we know through data is that leaders are naive. And I love you leaders that are listening. That's why I'm here. I love leaders. But check this out, Jill. 65% of managers in a national poll said that they strongly agree that they give effective feedback. When their employees and direct reports were given the same question, only 21% of them believed that they had received meaningful feedback in the last 7 days. We have a bridge to gap here of what meaningful feedback is. And that's the framework of the book, is to educate and support leaders in navigating this fragile world that they're in and ensuring it's done properly.
What I find fascinating about, when I work with leaders, I imagine you experience the same thing, is there's a lot of pressure. If you are a manager, you're a leader, you're a director, you're a top dog, you're managing people, that you need to have all the answers. But to me, the most effective leaders know when they don't and aren't afraid to step back and say, I don't know that, or I think someone else is better equipped to answer that, or any of those things. But ego gets in the way so much. And for me, like, in the world I'm in with artificial intelligence, there's no leader that wants to be like, I'm naive, I don't know really anything about this. But then when you get the vulnerable ones that are like, all right, Jill, listen, I'm going to be straight with you. I need to know this. I don't know this. It terrifies me and I don't like it. How can you help? I'm like, you've passed the first 10 hurdles. Like, the rest is smooth sailing.
Yeah. Vulnerability, humility. You can learn a lot from, I'm not sure. Can you help? I think one of the best leadership questions that is the most vulnerable is, I'm hoping you can help. I mean, think about this. I mean, this says, this is the biggest statement of, I am the leader. I don't have all the answers. Now, look, we better have a lot. I tell leaders all the time, you're going to sit in one of 4 camps. And camp 1 is, I hope it doesn't come up. Camp 2 is, if it comes up, I'll wing it. Camp 3 is, if it comes up, I'm ready to talk about it. But then there's Camp 4. And Camp 4 is, if it doesn't come up, I'm bringing it up. We need to strive to Camp 4, but not with arrogance, more out of duty and obligation. But when we're asking this question of, I hope you can help, what we're doing is we're tearing down walls between leader and subordinate, and we're doing collaborative feedback. Out of the 4 feedback types is my most favorite, because it's us. And that's something that not a lot of leaders do. A lot of leaders, quite frankly, Jill, they provide feedback and become the leaders that they've observed. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes it's not. My hope in this work that I'm doing is that I can give leaders something that is going to spark something to say, you know what, maybe the way that I'm doing it isn't the best way. I'm going to apply this to my leadership journey. That's really my hope, is to break down some of those old, maybe leadership habits.
What's really fascinating is, in the most effective businesses everywhere, in the most effective leadership situations, everything that I've ever observed in any company you look at that truly does well, it's not because of one single person. And I make the same argument to people with artificial intelligence. I said, artificial intelligence is over here. Human intelligence is over here. Alone, neither of them are the perfect solution. Collectively, collective intelligence is where you're going to see the leverage, the gains, and everything. And it's the same type of thing with the human capital, right? This person here doesn't have the answer. This person here doesn't have all of it, but you put your brains together and that collaboration is huge. And as a leader, you can't be afraid to collaborate based on what you think it might make you look like.
No question about it. The best leaders don't care who's right. They care what's right. And when you're postured that way, you can really make traction. This is a great competitive advantage in the business world also. The risk is when we go too far to the extremes. We have people listening right now that are extremely passive. Oh, yeah. We have people listening right now that are extremely aggressive. The passive is, they're very liked. They bring the sheet cakes for every birthday. They got the pony rides in the front lawn every Friday, ice cream socials. Everybody loves them, but they're not respected. You have the aggressive leader who is like, look, if we don't hit the number, I'll throw a chair. And look, you can get a lot of results by being aggressive, but it's not sustainable. And what you're driving is compliance, not engagement. In the middle is the sweet spot of assertiveness. And this comes through setting clear expectations, giving feedback on a routine basis, and earning the right to hold people accountable. When we can get these 3 pillars happening, we drive effective culture of performance. And that's what we're equipping leaders to do.
One of the phrases that I say regularly goes right along with this, and it is, unexpressed expectations are premeditated resentments. Right. I'm going to say
Ooh,
that for everyone one more time. Like unexpressed
ooh,
expectations are premeditated resentments. And like, I think
mm,
about this in my personal life, like, right. With friends, with, my dating life or anything, I get frustrated. I'm like, I didn't hear back in a timely manner. I'm like, Jill, have you expressed this expectation? No,
mm.
you have not. So you are mad about something that you didn't even give this other person a fair shake, because no two people have the same experiences that are brought to the table. And whether that's in
Yes.
dating, in friendship, in family, in business, it's two separate people. And you have to find a way to bring that together. And clarifying expectations is one of those major mechanisms.
You nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. And it's not just in the business world, and it's not just in leadership. I have people that come through our workshop and they say, "Boy, you should make this a parenting workshop." And I say, "Who told you it wasn't?" Like, the
Right.
greatest leadership title is mom and dad, right? Like, I mean, we need some support out here, but you're so right. And then there's the complete adverse of what you said, which is also just as big of a risk, which is, I told him the expectation. And I said, "When did you tell them?" "Well, I onboarded them in 2001 and it was in the handbook." What? Oh my gosh. So first off, to your point, let's set clear and reasonable expectations. Do people know? And once they know, are we affirming that through feedback along the way? We can't tell our 3-year-old child how to brush their teeth and why it's important, and cavities and bad breath and all of this stuff. We teach them, we train them on that day, however many, 16 years ago. Does that mean that your 16-year-old is never going to forget to brush their teeth? Well, if you have teenagers, that's not true, because it's like, wait, I told you when you were 3 how to do this. No, it's consistent feedback over time so that people understand what is the expectation and why is it good for them. When we can do this, now we're offering them the gift of feedback. It would be like me asking you, Jill, and Jill, we've only known each other for a few minutes. But if I were to ask you this, and this might be an awkward question in front of the entire world, but if you and I were maybe at a conference, or, we were working a booth at a trade show together, and I know I smelled maybe your coffee breath was a little strong, would you want me to tell you?
A
Would you
hundred
want to know?
percent.
You
Absolutely.
would want to know. What I've just done there is I've set the table of expectation. Now I could follow that question up with, Jill, why would you want to know? And you would tell me all the reasons. I want to give my best. I want people to have a good impression of me.
Mm-hmm.
Now I understand your why. So just by framing that, and we're talking about bad breath, this is a sensitive subject.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I was in an elevator with you, never talked to you a day in my life, and I just stepped into you and I said, Jill, your breath is very smelly.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm offensive. That's offensive. Who are you to tell me? I've never met you before. It's the same data. The breath stinks. And Jill's breath is always minty fresh, by the way. But it's the same data and it's the same feedback. The difference is I'm now communicating it by setting the table, and I'm understanding the motivation for them. Leaders so many times tell people the expectation and why it's good for the business. And not to say that people don't care, but they care more about them than they do your company. Simon Sinek told us this. He said, people will work for their what, but they'll die for their why. When I understand why stinky breath is important to you, I can keep reminding you about the importance of a mint, and I can tie your motivation to it. Now we're getting somewhere.
Getting to the why, Simon and I have been at the same different events a handful of times, and, talking about the why and different things. It's really interesting because when we look at the workforce now, the workforce that is coming up when we get Gen Z and even what's coming behind, we know, thousands of studies, thousands and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of pieces of data tell us that these employees care more about your company why than previous generations. But everyone, no matter what, always cares about themselves. That's human
Fact.
nature. That's our survival. And so when you're a leader, it's finding a way to, yes, communicate the company why, but in a way that matters to your people. And so many people think that the why is this goal. No, the goal, to your point, is the what. The why is because this is what we do. This is why we exist as a business. This is who we serve. This is how we're making the world a better place. But you have to have clarity on that. And, when your expectations aren't being communicated clearly, and I would imagine the same, that you teach with your feedback, it's, make it matter to them and for them, because otherwise it doesn't stick.
It's so good, Jill. And back to my passion. There was a time in my early professional career that my why, my motivation was to make sure that my parents never had to chop a pill in half because they couldn't afford copays. To make that stretch. That was my why. That was my deep drive. And my mom passes away at 47 years old, and my world is devastated. I'm just crushed. Well, I had recently got promoted into sales, and I had a sales leader. His name was Sean. And this guy went way above his job title. This was a guy that took me to Joseph A. Bank and taught me how to dress like a professional, taught me what collar stays were, taught me how to tie a Windsor knot in a tie. I'd never owned a tie. He would put me in the conference room after work hours and role play with me. Now my mom passes away. And by the way, he's asking questions. He's spending time with me. What's important to you? I would always tell him, I want to take care of my parents, and I don't want my kids to ever experience the life that I had as a child. I would tell him my motivation, my quote unquote why. Well, my mom passes away. Jill, I go into the darkest place that a human can go. I'm depressed. I don't want to be successful anymore. I don't even care. Sean pulls me into his office one day and has one of the hardest leadership conversations that I've maybe had to date. And he said, basically, enough's enough. You need to get it together. You're letting your family down. I'm not going to tolerate this any longer. Now, if Sean had not made the deposits that he made, I would have lost it on him. Who are you to tell me you don't know how I'm feeling? But all these deposits that Sean made up until that point earned him the right to have one of the toughest leadership conversations that I had. And basically he said, if you keep acting like this, you won't be on my team. I can't let you let your family down. We're done with this. And I put on my big boy pants and got my head back on straight. And I went on to have 12 promotions in that company, multiple president's clubs. I wonder to this day, and if I talk too long about it, I could get emotional. I wonder if Sean didn't make those deposits, set clear expectations, and give that hard feedback in that moment, if I'm even on this show with you today, Jill. That's the opportunity we have as leaders to go beyond a KPI and get to the root of people, but it is bathed in tough conversations and feedback.
And I love the phrasing of deposits that you use, because what he did in that conversation wasn't about, hey, you need to get your act together. He tied it back to what he learned through those deposits, knowing that your number one why is family. And that's something that listen, I love artificial intelligence. I love the possibilities it has to make us more human. And people hear me say that and they're like, well, that makes no sense. And I say, but let me give you a clear example of why it is. Because as humans, those real conversations don't happen enough in our businesses now, because we are so inundated with goal achievement, KPI, key performance indicator metrics, numbers that we have to hit. And we've gotten ourselves into these ruts of making everything a numbers game. Now, listen, data is sexy as hell if it's put in the right context, as far as I'm concerned.
No doubt.
But when we're doing this, we are doing things that are all process-based, that are all repeatable, that machines can be doing for us, so that we can take the time as leaders to have these conversations with a young Jeff, to have these conversations with a young Jill, and make sure that they're on the right path. And so for me, it's not about, can AI do this? Yes or no. It's not a binary question. It's, if I can show you a technology that is going to save up, let's pretend that all of us only work 40 hours a week, just for the sake of math. If I can, pretend this, and I can show you something that's going to make you 10% more efficient each week, freeing up 4 hours, it's 208 hours a year. You are saving. Anyone would say that's a good thing, but yet I say, well, that's what artificial intelligence can do. And people hear AI and they're like, coming back. And so it's really then coming back to your point. It's, how am I firm in that feedback with them, saying, listen, You say this is what's most important to you. You say you're not having enough time to have these conversations with your employees and your team because you're busy doing X. Yet I give you a solution. And because of your fear, you're not putting it into practice. I said, that seems hypocritical to everything you've told me about how you want to lead. And then it's like, oh, well, crap. Yeah, but you have to hold people accountable, and it takes the deposits to do it.
Man, well said, Jill. And I'm sure that people have somewhat of a bias because you're coming from the space. And let me say this to the listener. I'm the least tech savvy there is. Like, I'm the slowest adopter you've ever met when it comes to technology. But here's what I'm saying to the resistors right now is AI, because they'll tell me, I'm not in on AI. Leadership is about human connection. And I'm like, yeah, AI will afford you the opportunity to have more human connection. I don't believe AI is ever going to replace leadership. But here's what I do believe. I do believe leaders who effectively use AI are going to replace leaders that don't. That's what I believe.
100%.
If you can find me more time to do a one-on-one connection with my team member, I'm in. Isn't it true that leaders, what they dislike the most, sales leaders, operations leaders, it doesn't matter, is the busy work, is the reports, is the status reports, the expense reports, the recovery plans? I would rather just be with people and making these deposits into people. Exactly. That's exactly what we're talking about. That's why we have to embrace the change. We don't even have to like it, but we do have to embrace it.
It's funny. I think in every conversation I've had with someone who is truly curious about the potential, instead of like, listen, we can all have fear. Every single communicative technology throughout human history has been met with both fear and awe. I mean, let's go back to poor Gutenberg and the printing press and the buildings that were being burned left and right because people feared this so much. We're humans. We've reacted the same way throughout history. But as in every single case, the people who didn't fall in love with it, they didn't overuse it, but the people who embraced it in every situation outpaced the people who didn't. And so when you're doing this, I mean, I think to your conversations about feedback, Jeff, we know that regular feedback, not just some BS annual review, which has actually, if you only do that, it's proven to be worse than not doing that at all. Like, we know we need these regular conversations to calibrate the expectations, but let's say you have a 20-minute one-on-one with your leader once a week, right? Let's just say you have this. As a leader, it's impossible. You have 20 people under you. It's impossible to keep up on every single point of data with all of them. Yet, if you have your data in place in your organization, you can have AI give you a quick summary of what, let's say I'm working with you, Jeff, what Jeff has done in the past week. How does it tie to these big goals that we set? Where's the progress? And get down narrow. And then instead of starting with, hey, Jeff, so tell me about your week, it's like, hey, Jeff, from what I see in all the reports, we have X, Y, and Z. Is all of that accurate? That's a binary. That's a yes or no. If it's no, then you get to the conversation on why. And if all that's accurate, yes, now you have 19 additional minutes of time to go in one-on-one on everything else instead of using that time for some status report that could be completely automated.
I love it, Jill. I love it. The number one reason why leaders don't spend more time with their people is they're bogged down. This is your point, is like, we can be more effective and efficient with the tools that are out there. And again, the data doesn't lie. Like, our teams are telling us this. Nationally, only 29% of employees believe that their annual review is even accurate.
Right.
And 74% report that it's the only time during the year that they get meaningful feedback. And when I ask leaders, is this happening in your culture? I would tell you it's rare that I have a leader, a company that I work with, tell me that every employee in their company is getting a one-on-one connection on a fixed frequency, whether that's a month, a week, every other week. I'm not here to tell you what that is, but I am here to tell you it's critical. And when I ask leaders, why is this not happening? I get one of two answers, or both. I don't have time, which is crazy. Or two, if I sat across the desk from one of my employees, I wouldn't even know what to say. And so we have tools to help these leaders. If you go to our website under the freebies and just start hitting the print button, like, you're going to have enough content to have meaningful conversations by asking some of the best leadership questions. Go get the freebies and begin the process. Give them time. Use technology to free up time so that you can make the deposits that we're talking about. Big deposits, big withdrawals.
There's free resources, right? And people use these to ask questions. So here's one of my pet peeves in my world, and I want to know if you experience it in yours too, Jeff. Like, is people will start, you give them the tools, they start to use it, and they expect rapid change. Like, hey, I've done this for a month and nothing's happening. And I'm like, I lean forward. I'm like, yeah. And how many years were you doing something else that we have to unwire? Like, don't have unrealistic expectations. Like, you have to calibrate your own about, but when we do something, we're like, yeah, it's like, when I eat salad for a week straight with, raw protein and all this, I expect it to work right away. And when I don't see those, I'm like, yes. When I don't see those immediate gains, I'm like, this isn't working. But like, logically, but we have to, with any new tool, with any new change, it takes a while to get used to. I mean, many of you listening, remember a time without internet, when we didn't have this in our lifetimes, and think of how in the grand scheme, quickly we've adapted. It's because we chose to roll with it instead of being like, oh, well, I tried this, once and it didn't work. I'm like, so you're telling me you put one prompt into ChatGPT back in 2022 when everyone and their dog was trying it. And the very first model of this came out with a question that you expected a machine to produce a perfect answer. Whereas if you gave that same question to any human, no one would have either. That's amazing expectations, guys. Great. I'm really glad that worked for you.
Unreasonable. Yeah, it's for this same reason, Jill, that Planet Fitness is empty in February, right? We know this. You do have to stay the course. And simple and easy can be miles apart. But what we know is, even if you stink at feedback, we know that when you do it in higher frequency, it has impact. We know this. Now, here's what we also know. No two people are the same. They don't receive feedback the same. So feedback can't be the same. But if I were to ask the listener, the leader that's listening, do you desire to have better business results, profit, revenue? The answer is always yes. Do you desire to have lower turnover? The answer is always yes. Do you desire to attract top talent from the marketplace? The answer is always yes. Well, what if I told you that employees that receive feedback on a daily basis are 6 times more likely to agree on what you're saying when they get that feedback? They're 4 times more likely to strongly agree that they're motivated to do great work. This is the difference between compliance and engagement. There's an amazing cartoon out there that I love, and it's the leader standing over the employee at the desk. And the leader's asking the employee, why aren't you working? And the employee bubble says, because I didn't see you coming. Meaning, if I knew you were here, I would have began working. That's a culture of compliance, i.e. quiet quitting, which is costing the global economy $9 trillion a year. Just by giving feedback, setting expectations and giving feedback, we can start to create the biggest competitive advantage in the business world. Because most of our companies are tied to humans doing outstanding work that believe in it and understand why it's important to them. More frequent feedback, one, even if you never read my book, just meet with people more frequently and ask great questions. But if you take the framework of this book and you pull it into your culture, now not only are you just checking the box of feedback, but now you're doing it effectively. This will skyrocket your efficiency as a leader and the rising tide lifts all ships. And so I hope that strikes the heart of a leader that says they don't have time. That's like telling the cardiologist who says, look, if you don't start working out, you're going to have a triple bypass. I don't have time. Well, at some point when they're about to crack your chest open, it's going to be too late to say, I'm buying a treadmill. A little bit every single day can transform any culture, no matter how toxic it is. And it will take time. Nobody got to be obese overnight. You're not going to lose all that weight in a week. But over time and consistency and having leadership confidence to navigate this, the opportunities literally are endless for the culture that you're building.
It's so true. And it's that consistency over time. And that's with anything in life, right? But
Yes.
again, we get,
Yes.
when we don't see results fast enough, our attention gets, bifurcated across other areas and, we lose sight of it. So when I'm talking here, Jeff, one of the things that I like to do sometimes, and let me know if we can play along with it, is I like to
Sure.
apply AI solutions to what you do, and everyone listening
Yeah.
rolls along. How's that?
I love it.
So first
I
of
need
all,
I need some coaching
I
here.
know. Here's what I'm immediately thinking in all of this, because I'm going to tell you a story and then I'm going to apply it directly to what you're doing. You're going to see the application, but I have a twist on it. So
I'm in.
the story is this: I was just in speaking at a Continental Europe forum in Lucerne, Switzerland, 3 weeks ago, last month sometime. In any event, I'm there. And there's people from 17 different countries in Europe represented. And we've had different conversations about AI. And this one German guy, and you've done well as a speaker when a German man comes up to you and says, "You intimidate me a little, but I like the opportunity." And I'm like, man, I called my dad right away. I'm like, "Dad, guess what just happened?"
I got it, Dad.
I digress, but we were talking about different use cases for AI that they're using in their businesses, on a regular basis. And he said, "Listen, the single best use for AI," he goes, "it's not something that's like massively scalable or what I need," but he goes, "but this is what people don't think of." He goes, "I got a scathing review left of me." So it was this person, there was a complication, but then like we bent over backwards to make it right. And this is in the travel space. Like we worked with the hotel, they got free massages, free dinner, they got changed to a different room that was an upgrade over, and that, they accepted all of this. But then they came back on my agency site and left a scathing review that this advisor, set us up with this horrible situation. He said, "I wrote my response immediately. And then I said, no, I'm going to be smart. I put my response into ChatGPT and I said, write this as a response to a review on a public site, make it pointed, but make it nicer." And he goes, "I'm German. That's not my strength." he goes, "But I got this. I posted this within an hour of replying. They removed their review."
Wow.
Right. And he said, "There's no way if I had put what I wanted to put there, it was going to be good for them or my business."
Yeah.
But it saved me in that situation. And I think with so many people, we need to know our strengths as leaders. So for you, I think we need to build you a feedback AI agent, which allows a leader to put in their own style. And then as they know every teammate, they use AI to start to recalibrate the delivery of that message for each and every personality or communicative style, so that it's an aid for that. It's a shortcut. That doesn't mean it's doing it all the time, but what it does mean is after using it for 3-4 months to do that, they're not going to need to use it anymore. It's going to be a habit. It's going to be innate that when I talk to Jeff, I know I need to phrase things this way because that's going to be more effective. When I speak to Jill, I'm going to switch that up a little bit because she wants to prioritize X over Y. That type of thing, that to me is a way to humanize automation. That is a way to make us more human with technology. So I think we need to build this agent that then you can sell to your, your clients.
This is so good, because one of the things I talk about is not all feedback's the same, because not all people are the same. If you're an assertive or a passive, and that's where you lean and you lead everybody that way, you're going to be right a very small percentage of time. So imagine if, you are taking this data, you're putting it into AI, and AI is helping coach you on how to approach differently, how to speak differently, and by the way, leaders listening, we all can do this. We can act like something we're not. "Well, Jeff, that's just not my style. I'm aggressive and that's how it is. I call things as I see them." Well, if you're going to the lake to catch fish, you don't put a Snickers bar on the hook because you like it. You put a worm on. Why? Because that's what the fish likes. This could help us because we do, as leaders, as humans, we naturally gravitate and act who we are. But we're trying to attract people and help people show incremental improvement. Imagine if you had a tool that could remind you not to act like your normal self so that you can make big impact to other people. I think this is absolutely amazing. And I've used this a little bit in our business. If I may, I'll give an
Please.
example.
Yeah, I'd love to hear.
I have a key, and I'm not a tech guy. I'm not an AI guy. So let's just start there. I'm giving a keynote, my keynote, the state of readiness. There's a place in the keynote that it's high emotion. Specifically, there was one lady that was showing more emotion than anybody else in the room. I get a call from this lady a couple weeks and she was like, we have to meet. I can't stop thinking about your talk. I meet with her and she said, I'm begging you. Can you make that talk into a framework? And would you consider going into halfway houses and speaking to people that are battling substance abuse and help them through their recovery? And I said, I'll do all that I can. But I'm thinking to myself, how do I make this keynote into a 5-week group discussion? I literally put the keynote notes into AI and asked it to help me. Jill, my mind was so blown, and I'm sitting here thinking of all the missed opportunity. Now I know this content inside and out. I can speak to it passionately. I can't wait to get into these halfway houses and serve these people and be a part of their recovery to their ultimate success. But imagine if I didn't have this tool. Mm-hmm. I would have just went in and did what I knew to do. It wouldn't have been enough. Now this tool has equipped me to be more effective with the content that already existed. It just helped me build a different framework so that I can serve this specific client in a way that prior I wouldn't have known what direction to go with that. And so I'm embracing this, and it's having a huge impact on the lives of people.
We all need help, and we all can use, like, I have trained my own agent. Of course I have, with my content, right? My 4 books, podcasts, keynote transcripts of speeches. I record everything I do and just pop those transcripts to continue building the database in my own agent. It's a sparring partner with me now. I can do it. There was, who was the guest that said sparring partner? I didn't use, that was not my original phrase, but I loved it. It was so good. I'd have to think back on my episodes, but someone's like, yeah, I use it as a sparring partner. God, I love that phrase. Right. But it's, hey, here's what I'm thinking. And then it's, hey, my 5 pragmatics for generative AI. Obviously I trained you. Of course you do. Give me 5 ideas for each. This is what I like to do. I like to ask it for more ideas than I need. I know I only need 1, but I want it to come up with 5, and then I select the best one. How would I apply these pragmatics to the construction industry? How would I apply it to the travel industry? How would I apply it to the finance industry? Whatever it is. And it's a shortcut. It's not something that I wouldn't have gotten to on my own, but it's a shortcut. Now, instead of spending that time ideating, I am now spending all that time and human energy focused on one crystallized idea, allowing me to serve my clients better. And I did recently, my next book is in draft form now, completely written with my AI agent. Wow. And by the time I got to the introduction and had honed it in over weeks of training, right? And I'm a geek, so I love doing this stuff. It makes me really happy. By the time I honed it in to where it was writing the introduction of the book, which you do last so you can have everything in, I sent it to my parents. My mom is the best proofreader on the face of the planet. Like, I love her. I am so fortunate to have grown up with that, because while I hated it when I was younger, it's made me such a better communicator now. Yes. So shout out to you, Mom. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Mom.
And then my dad is like this massive AI skeptic. And he's an incredibly chemical engineer, top of his class, Colorado, stupid smart guy. But he gets skeptical about it. He's like, this machine doesn't have context. I'm like, I know, Dad, it's not binary. It's not, can it do it or not? It's, can it make you have some, right there. I sent it to them. They read this and I got their feedback. And the basic synthesis was, my mom, only a few things that she said, I know this is technically not wrong, but I just don't like it. Great. That's what she does. And I love her for it. My dad's like, I'm actually interested to read this book. He's like, all your books have been great, honey, but this one I'm actually interested in, learning more about. And, I said, that's really great, because I didn't even write this. He's like, he's like, bullshit. I'm like, I'm not reading this. No, I said, but this is how you can now leverage this. Am I going to take an unedited AI output, even on an agent that I trained personally on my own unique data, and take it face value? No, But I will
Right.
tell you, the way that it structured the introduction, and then I iterated back and forth with it, changing different things, saying, no, bring this piece of my work in, bring this piece of my work in. It's now 80% of the way done. And now it's
Hence the
again,
sparring, right?
it is. It's making it so
Yeah.
much better. And
Yeah.
like, if we can do that to get resources that help people faster, why wouldn't you be using this?
Well said. Well said. Yeah. And you do have to spar because, like, look, it
Yeah.
doesn't spit out. And I'm still like the novice chat GPT guy. Like, I'm not, I don't have, rooms and things. And, like even what you had mentioned, like, I'm not there yet, but I am embracing it and I'm moving towards it. Right.
Yeah.
The same thing we did whenever we picked up a BlackBerry for the first time and we had to figure out the trackball. And we're like, oh my gosh, like, right. This is just where we're at. So we have to embrace it.
Oh my gosh, I'm now having PTSD flashbacks to my
Right.
first BlackBerry.
Bring me back the trackball.
I know. Oh my God, that's amazing. But Jeff, we could talk forever in this conversation, but
I love it. I love it.
We got to wrap it up. So thank you not only for sharing your perspective on, firm feedback and everyone, the book and all the links and everything, of course, will be in the show notes. But thank you also for being vulnerable yourself, saying where you're at with the technology, and you're doing what I advise people to do exactly. And we didn't even talk about it first, which is you find one thing only, and play with the tool until it helps you really do that one thing. Once you gain efficacy in that, your mind is going to be more curious and see how else it can apply others. And it's brilliant that you're already doing that. And I love the uses. Thank you so much for sharing them. And thank you so much for being a guest on the show.
Yeah, I love it. And I hope I can serve your listeners with the book, supporting them on their journey, of course. And here's what we know. The leaders of tomorrow, they're not just going to manage machines or people, it's not this or that. They're going to master the intersection of both. They're going to do that with wisdom. They're going to do that with empathy. They're going to do that with great foresight. So I hope I can serve them with my content, of course, in the book. And Jill, it has been a pleasure to have this discussion with you, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Jeff. Everybody listening in, as normal, here's my hosting duties here for all of you. Go, like, subscribe, comment, engage, all the things that every podcast host and every podcast guest loves it that you do, because while I could probably speak to interesting people all day, every day, and love it, what matters to everyone I have on the show, and I know Jeff is no exception, is we like to know that what we said actually makes a difference in some way. So thank you all again for tuning in. We'll see you soon on another episode of Humanize Automation.